It's 2014 all over again in Uttar Pradesh. The clearest mandate in more than 30 years. Didn't you hear that 3 years ago as well? More than 300 seats for the BJP as of speaking right now. And that's the most this party's ever gotten in this state. Shankkar is with us right now. It's as simple as what happened and how did this happen?
Well, this is demonetization too.
Okay.
Narendra Modi has demonetized the elite, the establishment, and all conventional theories. He has also made it abundantly clear that Modi matters, and Modi is the name, the symbol, the party, and the magic. He has demonetized the idea of caste, he has demonetized the Aam Aadmi Party, he has demonetized his allies in a sense, who must be all very worried. But if you look at structurally this victory, it represents great strategic thinking on the part of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. What have they done? Everybody spoke about balkanization, polarization, Hindu vote, Muslim vote. That was there. But more important is he converted demonetization,
The actual one.
the actual demonetization, into a class issue, rich versus the poor. He converted the existing caste configuration of Samajwadi Congress, which was the landed people, and went and wooed the not so landed.
Out-socialized the socialists.
Well, you know, in UP they call it Samajik Samikaran, but basically it is re-engineering of the old theory of sum of pieces. So the Samajwadi Party, BSP and Congress owned about, or they claimed to own about 40% of the vote. The rest of the 54% was with different factions. And what this election shows is Narendra Modi's ability to aggregate opinion, votes around his personality, his promise, and his ideas.
What is that? Where does that leave that persona as you speak then, and for the party president and this prime minister, and how the rest of the country now views what they do next?
Well, this is a huge opportunity for Modi and the Modi Sarkar in that sense to propel big time change, structural reforms. Because if he has been able to make the people digest something as drastic and abrupt as demonetization, and remember, we haven't seen any great evidence of the advantages and the benefits that this is, and so we can say it is yet to come through. But this ability to convince people that he has the intent, that he is incorruptible, that he has the ability to work for their good. You know, these are all persuasive arguments. This is what perception is built on. Now, if he leverages this and pushes the big structural reforms, the momentum will take the party and his own ambition past the 2019 mark.
So you've had 3 years of, in many states of the country, the voter buying this argument. You've had low returns to that message in parliament, at least even in the lower house, or the way it's slowly, very slowly for them, the upper house may be changing. How does that change? Because 2 years now, lands off the table, labor's off the table. You've written about how healthcare needs to change. What's the legislation then that this now earned political capital gets then put on to? 2014 got put on to land and labor, and then some of that then they realized was going away. That changed, GST came on. What does this momentum get carried into as legislation and reform?
So you are sort of preempting my next column in BloombergQuint.
Okay.
So this is an opportunity for Modi to shake up all the sarkars.
Okay.
Remember, after the victory in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, they are now ruling in 13 states with allies. they would be ruling. That accounts for about 60% of the population and about 70% of the geographical area. If Manipur and Goa turn in their favor, that will add to this sort of political ballast. Now, with 13 states under you, you need not necessarily do the things that need to be done at the center. And he can actually implement his theory of Team India and get these governments that he has elected. Remember, each of the government post 2014 that the BJP has won election, they have all won on the name of Modi. It's his currency that is in circulation in these states. He has appointed these chief ministers. And so he has to leverage this, make these state governments deal with the issues, and that's how you will come to address the issues of land, labor, health, education, because these issues are not going to get settled in the center.
Is there an argument that this 3 states that where the old central India needed that most are the 3 states where these chief ministers predate him? There's Rajasthan, there's Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, so strong local leaders. One would argue that this change and this index of social change is most needed there. Will they accept what he wants, what he sends down?
Well, to a certain extent, Vasundhara Raje in Rajasthan has done some amount of work. She's trying hard. Now, the thing here is that the party has been unsure of doing certain things, which is essentially how much labor laws do they open up? How much of education can they outsource? I mean, the government can still fund this education of students, but does government run schools better than the private sector? This is a question that will be thrown up. For instance, on infrastructure projects, it's an accepted wisdom now that private public partnership sort of works. So the PPP model could be implemented in agriculture in terms of contract farming, in management of local governance, civic issues, which there is evidence of it succeeding in some parts. It will also be used in issues like health and education. Now, these are the discussions that need to happen. And I mean, it should have happened along with the creation of Niti Aayog, and that hasn't sort of taken off.
To your December piece, right? Because that's where you went into where that 15-year vision document is still absent. So now in these last 2 years,
they're now calling it the revision document in Niti Aayog.
Fair enough. So that the big ideas need to be spoken about and become public debate. Last piece of this: where does this take whoever else wishes to present an alternate view, and how do they say, well, this is what so many people are agreeing and voting for? Here's our other view, and here's why it's credible.
So I've always maintained that the Congress is a bit of a dinosaur in this game just now, because they're still operating on the 80s business model, which is caste combinations, fractional vote and stuff like that. Their advantage is that they have dealership. They still have a footprint all across the country, but they have no product. And the primary reason for that is that the Congress is seasonally good at articulating what they are against. But they have never really stood up and said, this is what we stand for.
Is that?
And therefore, they have failed to articulate an idea. I mean, whatever else about the 2014 campaign, the Achhe Din idea stuck. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas stuck. The ideas have stuck. Whether they've happened, not happened, those are all matters of debate. But the Congress is simply unable to present a central message that this is what we stand for. The other thing that the Congress must recognize is that decentralization in party affairs is a better idea when the leadership is not quite that saleable. So allowing Amrinder Singh to run the Punjab campaign was a good decision. Importing people like Prashant Kishore and other strategists is a bad decision, because you have to decide your strategy. You cannot outsource strategy.
No, but even when that central leadership was strong, the only leader that was allowed to run his own state was back then between 2004 and 2009 Rajshekhar Reddy in Andhra. So the Congress, since Indira doesn't have a record of letting state parties run their own thing, it's always been Delhi centric.
So they have always damaged their prospects and their legacy by undermining local leadership. In Maharashtra, they undermined Vasantdada Patil. In 1 5-year period, they had 6 chief ministers. They have undermined the leadership in Goa. They undermined the leadership in Uttarakhand. They undermined the leadership in Gujarat. They don't know whether they're coming or going in Gujarat. Okay. Now Maharashtra, they have a PCC president who's under some cloud over the Adarsh corruption case. They have an ex-chief minister, Prithviraj Chauhan, Berkeley educated and all of that, and he's not at all visible.
Correct.
Their biggest ministers in the UPA 1 and 2 are simply invisible. Have you seen Kamal Nath?
No.
Have you seen
Shinde in Maharashtra
Anthony?
again. No.
Have you seen Shinde?
No.
None of the people are being seen. And you ask them privately and they say that, well, nobody is talking to us. How many Congress ministers, ex-ministers, UPA ministers campaigned in Uttar Pradesh? The BJP had 17 central ministers campaigning in Uttar Pradesh. This is the difference between being proactive, being invested in victory, and being entitled.
No, but that last bit, there were that many ministers campaigning in Delhi in 2016 as well. This is post facto saying, okay, fine, it's worked here. The last bit of this, right, that's for the Congress. How does Naveen Patnaik react to this? How do other parties, local parties, that have fared better against the BJP than the Congress and have elections lined up in the next 2-3 years, how do they position themselves to
see? The sum of pieces story says that the bottom of the pyramid is the section that goes to vote, that pro-poor matters. Naveen Patnaik has already announced agricultural loans at 1% and 2% interest rate. Other states will do the same thing, and there will be a push towards what I call social populism or populist socialism. This is going to happen, and we will see this happening in the next 2 years.
All right, we'll connect with Shankkar a little later in the day as well when we have more numbers and some of this settles down, when you hear from more leaders of the parties that have won these elections and what they intend to, if there is any first word on what they intend to do in part. Thank you very much for watching. Follow us on BloombergQuint on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and go and visit BloombergQuint.com. Thank you.